Are you a Muslim struggling with playing video games too much, or you're trying to quit? Has video games consumed your life and you're trying to make change? In this video, I will show you exactly how I went from a video game junkie, pulling all-nighters, playing video games all the time, to becoming a gym rat and consistently going to the gym 5 to 6 times a week. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yusuf, and I used to struggle a lot with video game addiction, which had side effects like a bad diet, horrible sleep schedule, lack of discipline, and filled my life with bad habits. I know exactly how it feels to go through this cycle, empty and unfulfilled. Like I had no direction in my life and I had no idea what I wanted to do until I took the step of getting into the gym. And this one step led to a complete 180 in my life. I was able to quit video games, change my diet, and build good habits, and eventually return back to Allah. Alhamdulillah. Now, in order to quit video games, akhi, you have to understand first why you're addicted in the first place. For me, I was addicted to having status and feeling like I have some level of importance within the video game. And I know exactly how you feel when it comes to this situation as well. I was addicted to leveling up consistently and unlocking new things. And it also felt like an escape from the outside world where I felt generally insecure about myself. I had a skinny, fat physique. I ate junk food all the time. I was literally addicted to instant gratification. So video games being my escape, I would continually release dopamine over and over again playing video games. And over time, I'd get more and more addicted because I would be trying other things, and then I'd be unlocking new things, and then things would be, you're basically like changing the environment within the video game and continually allowing yourself to basically get this dopamine hit from all areas of the video game. Wallahi, I felt like empty. I felt unfulfilled when I was playing these video games. Deep down inside, like I wouldn't realize it until I was not playing the video games, right? When you're playing in the video games, you're so in the moment. You're so focused on, what you're doing at the exact moment when it comes to playing the video game. You're so isolated you're so focused onto the video game, right? I remember my mom would always look at me and I'd be like literally looking at my computer, like the computer screen would be like right here, and I'd be like, right? I literally used to play like that. Like it was crazy. Like I would be so glued to the computer and I could be on there for several hours a day and it didn't even matter. And then, the moment you get off, you realize like how you look at life differently. You realize like life looks kind of boring and bland, and there's not like a lot you can do. And obviously you feel more insecure because of all the other byproducts. Like for me, again, I had the skinny fat physique. I felt insecure about myself. I was eating food that made me feel even worse, right? I was just getting those dopamine hits. Like I would basically hide myself away within the diet, within the video games and everything else. And this is what allowed me to become addicted to it, because of the fact that I wanted to escape from the real world. And I felt detached, basically. Now, applying this understanding of leveling up when it comes to the gym. When looking at this concept of leveling up on a video game, I would look into the patterns of how my addiction to video games would work, and I would understand that, and it helped me apply that same concept onto the gym eventually. Instead of feeling like I needed to have some status in the virtual world, I asked myself, why not aim for status in the real world, right? There's always a beginning to a journey, even in the virtual world. People in video games that typically would use this term noob, which just means like a new person when it comes to a video game. Like they're not very good at the game, basically, because they're new. Basically, you start out as a noob. That's how it is at the beginning of your journey, virtual and real world. Eventually, over time, I became better at the game, which invokes more dopamine over time, right? When you become better and better at the video game, you start to enjoy it more and more, and you want to play it more. And you feel like you just want to glue yourself more to it because of the fact that you're enjoying it more and you're becoming better at it, right? So technically, there is kind of a delayed gratification element to video games when you build your skills over time in the video game and become better and better at the video game. And then those skills like stay with you, right? It's kind of this, there is a little bit of a delayed gratification like effect to it, but of course you're going to get the pleasure of playing the video game as well and getting the instant gratification effect of enjoying that, right? So when I started out my journey in the gym, of course, in the beginning it was difficult to adjust and I had no idea what I was doing. I was just literally going with the motions. My friends were teaching me how to, you know, bench. My friends were teaching me how to bench, squat, and deadlift and everything. And over time, I would basically do more research on the fitness industry and whatnot. And there was this specific YouTuber. His name is Jeff Nippard. He's a science-based fitness YouTuber, and he generally makes a lot of science-based fitness content on how to approach fitness from a science-based perspective. So basically, like optimizing everything, right, and whatnot. But anyways, he had a push-pull legs routine that was pretty popular, and I looked at it and I tried it out, but I made some minor tweaks to it. Because there was some certain like exercises that I didn't want to do, or like I prefer to do a different exercise. There's always going to be like a specific workout routine that someone gives you may not always be 100% perfect. There might be some tweaks that you would want to make, right? So I made some minor tweaks in it, but I generally followed this routine, and I followed this routine for a long time. I literally like my entire first year of lifting, a year and a half, maybe year to a year and a half. I followed this routine strictly. And initially at the beginning, right, it was harder for me to kind of like adjust and get into the gym. But over time, I was able to build up consistency and stay consistent. And within a couple to a few months, I would actually notice some significant results. Like compared to how I was before, you know, the newbie gains, they started to come in and I could see significant results like compared to what I was like before, right? I went from skinny fat to actually looking a little bit more lean, like having a little bit more definition because of the fact that my muscles grew and my fat like went down as well. Basically, I went through what you'd call body recomposition, which is building muscle and losing fat at the same time. It's very easy when you're a beginner because of the fact that you're able to build muscle at a faster rate when you're a noob at the gym, right? And over time, like within those few months, right, when I actually looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, whoa, I'm actually like getting some results, right? And this would invoke a dopamine effect that would allow me to continue to go to the gym and stay consistent. And then I would notice more and more results. And over time, building that momentum at the beginning is the hardest part. But when you build that momentum, you are able to stay consistent long term because then you start to enjoy it. When you get to the point where you enjoy the gym, it just makes things so much easier. Now, how I was able to actually quit video games for good and stick to the gym long term was by staying consistent in the short term in the beginning, building that momentum at the beginning, meaning after those few months I gained results, I would gain that rewarding dopamine effect and over time until I started to enjoy the gym more and more and more, right? In those first few months when I noticed my first results ever, like in the gym, that made me like want to push myself more, right? At the beginning, it's going to be very hard, right? But you have to build the momentum at the beginning, right? You're going to start to enjoy it when you start to go more and you start to see the dopamine effect that you get from going to the gym. Because when I started to enjoy the gym more and more, I would be getting the dopamine effect from the actual workout itself rather than the results, right? Typically at the beginning, you know, we all think about the end result, like, oh, you know, how nice would it be to have an awesome physique, right? And we don't want to actually put in the effort that leads us to that, right? But when you start putting in the work and actually achieve that yourself, and you do that over time, you realize, you know, with the help of Allah, with the result, with you know, the results come with Allah, right? But you were the one that put in the work, and you were the one that showed up every day almost. How many ever times you went a week, regardless, you stayed consistent. That's the point. You showed up, you did the work, and over time, doing this over a long period of time, you notice the results. This alone invokes the dopamine effect that allows you to stay consistent long term. Once I got to this level, it was easy to commit to the gym long term. Why? Because I enjoyed the gym. I loved it. I started to love the gym, right? I would want to show up every day. I would want to lift weights every single day. I'd want to go through the movements. I'd want to, like overhead press and, bench press, like, right? And I'd want to deadlift and squat and everything, right? I actually enjoyed doing this stuff. I enjoyed going through not all the times do we actually enjoy going through the pain, right? Pain is pain regardless. But embracing it, I wanted to embrace it, even though it's painful. And there will be days where you feel tired and you don't want to push yourself the most, right? You're gonna have those days. It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable, akhi. But through those days is when you're able to build mental strength and discipline and still push yourself, and then you get a dopamine effect from that, and then you're able to build more discipline. Subhanallah, right? The way Allah built dopamine in our systems, when we invoke it in the right way, we can do so much. Subhanallah. Over time, continuing my journey in the gym, I realized I started to drift away from video games slowly, more and more and more. As I started to lift more and more, and I started to get a little bit more obsessed with the gym and everything, this over time would make me want to play video games less and less. Why? Because I realized it felt like more and more meaningless, because the whole reason I was addicted to video games in the first place is because of the fact that I was getting that dopamine effect, and I felt like I was making progress in some sort of way, and I'd feel like I actually, had some status within the video game, and I actually would put myself as an authority figure in the video game. Basically, a lot of people looked up to me and whatnot because of the fact that I was so good at the game, right? But that's in the virtual world. Just transferring that over to the real world, I wanted to level up more in the real world. So basically, all those bad habits, eating junk food and playing video games and pulling all-nighters and whatnot, with the gym over time, I would eat healthier and healthier, right? I would want to start eating more healthy food. I want to start exploring more options because, to build muscle, you need to eat a lot of protein, right? So before, my diet was basically a proteinless diet, probably under 30 grams of protein a day. I would barely eat any protein. It was mostly my diet was literally mostly candy, Mountain Dew, ice cream, banquet meals, pizza, etc. How horrific does that sound? Just eating that every single day. It's just bad. You have to actually go through it and eat it, and go through that diet over time to actually see how much of an effect it has on you. When I realized I had to eat a lot more protein, I would actually start tracking my protein more, and I'd be aware of and conscious of what things I'd be eating. And of course, things generally with more protein are generally healthier. Meats and Greek yogurt and whey protein, etc., etc. When it comes to whey protein, you got to be careful with what whey protein you choose. But regardless, anyways, over time, I got healthy. I got healthier and healthier in my diet, and I started incorporating more habits. I wanted to start reading books. I wanted to start looking into different ways to improve myself. I'd be watching self-improvement podcasts, and I'd get obsessed with self-improvement YouTubers and whatnot. There's a problem when it comes to self-improvement YouTubers, right, in the Muslim space. But I will dive into that in another video. Anyways, over time, I would incorporate this kind of want to improve myself in every single way possible mindset. And then over time, subhanAllah, Allah guided me to Islam, and alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful for that. But now, tying self-improvement and Islam together, and using the idea of wanting to improve yourself, but for the sake of Allah, right? I started to enjoy self-improvement more over time. I started enjoying things that would benefit me, and as I was able to do more of these good habits, the same replacement process happened where I would be replacing bad diet and junk food with a good diet and healthy food. I would be replacing pulling all-nighters to an earlier sleep schedule, right? I started incorporating Salah in my day and everything, and this allowed more structure within my day. And over time, everything compounded together. If you're interested in knowing more about why you should get into the gym, akhi, I recommend watching this video right here, where I explain it in more depth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.